Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today. I'm Gina Rozman-Wendle, and I'm the president of the Chicago chapter of the National Organization for Women and a proud representative of Chicago for abortion rights. My pronouns are she and her. Again, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm very proud to represent Chicago Now, an organization that has been fighting alongside members of this coalition since 1967 to make abortion safe and legal. But as glad as I am to see this amazing coalition here today, I honestly can say that I wish we were not here right now. I'm very angry that we are facing the concrete possibility that in the immediate future, birthing people could have fewer reproductive rights than we did when I was born 35 years ago. We are here today on the first day of the Supreme Court's new term to firmly tell the court to uphold Roe versus Wade. Extreme factions of this country are attacking our basic rights: the right to control our bodies, our right to vote, to make a living, and to have equal access to health care. These are rights that we all supposedly have, but based on color, sex, age, and socioeconomic status, often cannot exercise in reality. Extremists march with signs that say "my body, my choice" when it comes to COVID vaccine mandates, but they take no issue with laws that dictate our choice whether or not to bear a child. A choice that Ruth Bader Ginsburg once described as central to a person's life, to their well-being and dignity. When the government controls that decision for people, it treats us as less than fully adult humans responsible for our own choices. With every hard-earned civil rights victory, there's been an immediate response that counters our societal progression to justice. Ever since the court first decided Roe v. Wade, extremists have chipped away at the right to reproductive autonomy, and the court has let them do it. The court has upheld medically unsound, discriminatory laws that are only imposed on abortions, not other medical procedures. Meanwhile, anti-choicers who've been plotting against reproductive rights for years have already won a huge victory. Anti-abortion judges are currently in all levels of our judiciary, all the way up to the Supreme Court. We're here today to tell those who think they won, those who seek us to push us back into the dark ages, we cannot go back. We will not go back. Today, we demand that the court respect the views of the overwhelming majority of Americans who support the right to abortion and the nearly 1/4 of Americans who will have an abortion by age 45. The Supreme Court has already ignored the will of the people by choosing to hear arguments around the super restrictive Mississippi Gestational Age Act on December 1st. And by refusing to stay the bounty hunter Texas abortion ban, SB 8. These unconstitutional laws affect everyone's health and human rights, not just citizens of those states. These are extreme attacks that especially impact women, people of color, people of low incomes, and other marginalized groups. If not stopped, these laws will spread. A Florida legislator recently introduced a 6-week abortion ban so Florida can join Texas in putting bounties on the head of people exercising their fundamental rights. These radical laws show that anti-abortion zealots will stop at nothing and will use any disingenuous argument or tactic at their disposal to forcefully impose their will on others. We've seen this right here in Chicago, supposedly a safe haven for reproductive rights, a blue city in a blue state. But next to me here are pictures of physical attacks on Chicago reproductive care clinics that happened just last month. These attacks are part of a long existing but recently escalating pattern of harassment and lethal violence against abortion providers and staff in this country. The Supreme Court has the power to stop giving credence to these abortion bans and the host of medically unsound state laws that have preceded them. This broad coalition of women's and reproductive right advocates demands that the court have the courage to stand up to the violent throngs that seek to force us back to a time where women would die in botched, unsafe abortion procedures. If Roe is overturned and Congress does not do the right thing in passing the Women's Health Protection Act through both houses to make clear that abortion is a fundamental right all across this land, we know the rich and powerful will publicly celebrate, but they're still going to be able to access abortions in private. The ones who suffer most are the very young, people of color, and people of limited means. These are people systematically oppressed by the ones in power. Their lives are the ones on the line. That's why here in Illinois, we must also repeal the Dangerous and Onerous Parental Notification of Abortion Act. We must respect the bodily autonomy of young people and support their right to make their own decisions about their futures. I encourage you all to contact your federal and state legislators and demand that they support the WHPA and support repealing P&A here in Illinois. Those who oppose reproductive rights are often the same hateful forces who repeatedly attack the rights of LGBTQ people, the rights of young people, Black and brown people, immigrants, and refugees. If the Supreme Court upholds the draconian Texas and Mississippi laws and others of their like, they will embolden these extremist forces of hate to expand their attacks on civil rights beyond fundamental reproductive rights. Already, there are zealots out there saying if we can overturn Roe, we can surely overturn the seminal court cases that legalize same-sex marriage. Only at our collective peril do we ignore the attacks on the right to abortion. Today's speakers that I have with me are representing a wide swath of activists, many on the front lines of assuring that abortion access continues in Texas and everywhere else. We are also proud to have representatives from unions who represent thousands across Chicago and Illinois and students whose very futures are on the line. Our hard-earned civil rights come from the hard work of the organized and mobilized people who fought for those rights, people like our speakers here today. The past has showed us that we cannot rely on any one politician or elected body to protect us, not even the Supreme Court, a body that is supposed to be neutral and divorced from politics, but has become polarized and nakedly political. We must rely on the collective power of the people to hold these institutions to task. Therefore, we're asking you all to mobilize and join the protests that will be occurring around the nation on Saturday, October 2nd. Here in Chicago, the United Rally for Reproductive Justice and March to Defend Abortion Access will be at 11:30 a.m. Saturday at Daley Plaza. We urgently encourage everyone to attend and declare in one voice, no abortion bans, not now, not ever. Without further ado, please welcome Meghan Daniel, the support coordinator for Chicago Abortion Fund. Meghan started with CAF as a helpline volunteer in 2015, has served on the CAF board, and now leads their volunteer case managers and talks with callers every day.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. It's a huge honor to be here representing the Chicago Abortion Fund, and thank you for that comprehensive overview of what we're up against together. As we all know, on September 1st, SB 8, a blatantly unconstitutional and harmful abortion ban, went into effect in Texas, and we're facing a slew of other bans in the pipeline. And a quick rundown of the law for anyone who's unfamiliar tells us that the 6-week abortion ban gives power to anyone to enforce the ban. Any anti-abortion extremist can collect up to $10,000 by suing abortion providers, funds, or anyone who helps a person obtain an abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. We've seen it happen already with people trying to test the law, and we know that this provision, deputizing everyday people to police and punish pregnant folks, funds, and providers, is part of a long-standing legacy of racist policing and criminalization. We know that all abortion bans are part of a long-standing legacy of racist policing and criminalization, and that this is fundamentally about controlling movement, controlling bodies, which is why as we work on the ground to connect callers to funding and logistical support every day, we have our hearts set on the horizon to a future without borders, without cages, and without police. This ban is devastating and comes after a series of restrictions on abortion in Texas, just like the bans that follow in other states would. And despite the best efforts by politicians and anti-abortion extremists who are attempting to completely ban abortions, we are here, along with a robust national network of funds, providers, and supporters, a constellation of amazing people. We can't do it alone. And we lift up our sibling abortion funds in Texas and in the Southwest in light and love, and call on each other to follow their lead in this fight. In 2018, we supported 183 people. In 2019, we supported 824. And in 2020, we supported over 1,600 people. In the first 6 months of this year alone, we've supported over 1,300 people. And it's not just funds for abortions, it's logistical support for plane rides, for hotels, childcare, sick time off work, And we can't do this work without all of you. The beautiful thing about abortion funds being on the ground is that we're able to respond directly to the needs of our callers. This ban is devastating, to be sure, but we're here and we're going to keep doing our work no matter what comes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meghan. Our next speaker is Jennifer Welch, the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Illinois, which provides affordable, high-quality reproductive health care services and medically accurate sexual health education to women, teens, and men throughout Illinois. Through medical services, educational programs, and advocacy efforts, PPIL works to ensure and protect the reproductive rights of each individual.
Thank you. I am both honored and furious to be here today as the Supreme Court session opens, and it may be the very last time that we have a Supreme Court that recognizes Roe as the rule of our land. My colleagues have already told you about SB 8 and the damage that it's doing. Not only does it make abortion illegal at 6 weeks before most people even know that they're pregnant, it sets up vigilantism, or the sue thy neighbor law, so that anybody who provides an abortion or helps somebody get an abortion can be sued. We're already seeing this with one case in Texas where the provider has been sued by two people who had no relationship to the patient or the provider and don't even live in Texas. That's the world that we're coming into. We're also seeing patients travel long distances to access high-quality care here in Illinois. The number of people coming to Illinois for abortions has increased steadily since 2014, and we expect that to increase dramatically because of SB 8 and the copycat laws that we are already seeing across our country. Because the Supreme Court let SB 8 stand, we anticipate similar laws. In fact, last week it already happened in Florida, and a similar vigilante law was released in Florida. And then we expect even more patients to need to travel here to get care. As my colleagues have already said, the people most impacted by this are the folks who don't have the resources to travel easily. And that means that brown and black communities, people from rural communities, people living with low incomes, people with disabilities will have even more hoops to jump to get the care that they need. Today, at the start of this Supreme Court session, we have every reason to fear the end of the federal protection for access to abortion. We don't know how the court will rule in the upcoming Dobbs case, which challenges the 15-week Mississippi abortion ban, but they have clearly given signals that they intend to ignore 50 years of settled law. When laws target abortion providers, it doesn't only end access to abortion. It decreases access to the important and life-saving reproductive and sexual health care that we provide, because the providers that are here today do many other services, and all of those are now at risk because of these laws. We're lucky here in Illinois because we have the Reproductive Health Act, or the RHA, and that reinforces that here in Illinois, abortion is health care, not a criminal activity. But we have to remain vigilant here in Illinois as nationally these rights are overruled or dismantled. We can't afford to be complacent. The laws can change, so we must remain vigilant for patients in Illinois and all others who depend on us. Planned Parenthood of Illinois' doors are open, and we are here to unapologetically provide abortion no matter what your zip code, no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Dr. Allison Cowett, an obstetrician and gynecologist who specializes in contraception and abortion. She's the medical director of Family Planning Associates Medical Group located in the West Loop. It's one of the largest independent abortion providers in the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gina, and thank you to these wonderful coalition members out here with us today. I am an obstetrician gynecologist, and I provide abortion care full-time. It is my full-time job. Working here in Illinois, in Chicago, I am very used to caring for people from outside Illinois. For years, folks from out of state have traveled to Illinois for abortion care to avoid the medically unnecessary and often discriminatory restrictions in place in their home states. Every single day at Family Planning Associates, we take care of people from Indiana and Wisconsin, and at least once a week from many other Midwestern states, Iowa, Ohio, Kentucky, etc. And we often also see patients from further away, from the South, from the West, and occasionally from international patients, people who come to Chicago because abortion is completely illegal in their home countries. And then came SB 8. In the first few weeks of that SB 8 was in effect, we saw 20 Texans come to Illinois to undergo abortion. And that was the same amount of Texans we had seen in the entire year of 2020. So significant increase. And on September 4th, just 3 days after the law went into effect, I personally took care of my first Texan since SB 8 went into effect. She told me that she actually had the means to buy a plane ticket to come from Houston to Chicago, and she also had the means to have her support person, her partner, come along with her. Now, many of our patients do not have these means, but with this patient, I talked about the situation in Texas. She had some very choice words for the governor, Greg Abbott, but I can't repeat them to you today. To be honest, right after I did her abortion, I had to take a few minutes in my office and I shed a few tears. And it wasn't because I'm not used to caring for people from far away. I'm very used to that. But seeing this patient and caring for her had a major impact on me because I felt like it really showed me what's to come. Every day since then, we've seen women from Texas. Like my first patient, some had the means to go online and buy a nonstop ticket to O'Hare, but the vast majority do not. A patient told me just last week that she spent her whole savings to come from Texas to Chicago because the states within driving distance of her home have been overwhelmed by people from Texas needing abortions. So she flew to O'Hare and used her life savings. Some have received funding from the many amazing abortion clinics like Chicago Abortion Fund that Meghan is a part of. And these funds are working day and night to help people who need to come from Texas and other places far away to pay for travel, lodging, food, babysitting, all these different things that people need. One patient actually told me that she flew to O'Hare in the morning from Texas, came to our clinic to have an abortion, and was going right back to the airport to board a flight home. This is our new reality and is completely unfair. We will not accept these injustices, the rolling back of 50 years of progress, the return to a pre-Roe era with the denial of people's rights for reproductive autonomy, and bans that disproportionately affect poor women and Black, Indigenous people of color. Let me say one last thing, and that is repealing the parental notice of abortion law in Illinois is extremely important. Everybody needs to call their state senator and tell them to pressure Don Harmon, Senate President Don Harmon, to call the bill to the floor for a vote in the veto section, which is coming up. We must have no more bans on abortion, no more long distance travel, no more intimidation, and no one else spending their life savings on travel to Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cowett, for that horrifying glimpse into what could be to come if we don't stop these bans right here, right now. Our next speaker is Deborah Cosey, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 308, employee of the CTA for over 27 years, and president of the ATU Illinois Legislative Joint Conference, the first woman ever elected to this position. Deborah is also a board member of Women's March Chicago.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Come on, we got to be chippier about this. You all don't sound like defeaters. Come on. You sound like defeaters. Are we defeaters? I don't know. Are we defeaters? Okay, I stand here today representing Amalgamated Transit Union Local 308 and the Illinois legislation. Now, we are the train operators and the transit throughout the state of Illinois and Chicago, where we have 65% women. Can someone say 65% women? 65%. Now, what would this right that is wrong will do for the 65% women who have children, who might have been molested, who might be raped, who might have had incest, and as a result of that become pregnant, or them themselves become pregnant. And then we have this law that will keep them from being able to make decisions that could be lifelong decisions that they would have to make. What do you think how would that affect a person that's driving the train or driving the bus? I don't even want to imagine that, ever. When I was in the 6th grade, I will never forget this. There was a young lady who got pregnant, who was afraid to tell her parents, and so she took a hanger and tried to give her own self-abortion. I will never forget that, and that plagues my mind every time these disgusting abortion supposed to be rights come up. No one can speak about our bodies better than we can. No one should be able to make the decisions about what we do for our body better than we can. Women sustain and we hold on to a lot. We have a lot on our minds with children, not to even mention this pandemic. Raising a household, going to work. Why should we have to fight and make a decision if a man decides to attack us and rape us and take our willful rights away from us? Why can't we make the decision not to have? Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If you force us to have it, the mental aspect that will bring to that woman all of her life for birthing a child that she did not consent to having will plague her and that child for the rest of her life. Do you have the right to make that decision on my mental sanity? No, you don't. So I'll tell you what to do, Texas, with that money that you're making these laws with, and to the court system with that money. How about fixing the mental aspect of these men that are molesting and raping and having incest on these women? How about taking that money to have programs to teach people about abstinence? Then we won't have to deal with all this abortion. But one thing for sure, two things for certain. You will not be the voice and the choice of what happens to our bodies. It's our game this time. That's why I wear this. Women support sports all across this nation. Guess what, men? We need you to stand up and support us. Abortion rights is right for us. Let us make the choice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those amazingly powerful words. As we mentioned earlier today, this press conference is sponsored by a broad group that is mobilizing for this Saturday's October 2nd march to defend abortion access, including the Chicago Abortion Fund, Chicago for Abortion Rights, Chicago Now, the Clinic Best Project, Gay Liberation Network, the Illinois Choice Action Team, Illinois Now, the Illinois Single Payer Coalition, Physicians for a National Health Plan Illinois, Planned Parenthood of Illinois, and Reproductive Transparency Now. Brief descriptions of each organization can be found in today's press release. Our next speaker we have is Dr. Dwayne Dowell from Physicians for a National Health Program Illinois. Dr. Dowell is also president of the Illinois affiliate of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice.
Good day, all. I'm Dwayne Dowell, speaking here today on behalf of Physicians for a National Health Program. Physicians for a National Health Program is a single-issue organization advocating for a comprehensive, universal, single-payer national health program. PNHP has more than 20,000 members and many chapters all over the United States. It is an organization based on the belief that health care is a basic human right. I remember years ago at a Planned Parenthood gathering in Dallas, Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, with her powerful voice and towering intellect, talking about the fundamental rights of women to access comprehensive health care. Throughout her keynote speech, she repeatedly referred to these fundamental rights. Well, access to competent, passionate reproductive health care is indeed fundamental to the health of this nation. We all know that there are places in this world where people, mostly men, with rigid religious beliefs feel they can exert control over women's lives in the areas of education, health care, social interaction, and behavior. Not in the United States of America, we say. Well, I have news for you. We just did it right there in Texas, and are threatening to do more. We must not let freedom of religion be turned on its head. We must not let the constitutional right to terminate a pregnancy be put at risk. Single-payer health care, or Medicare for all, would include access to comprehensive reproductive health care, remove out-of-pocket expenses for medically necessary care, and enroll the 30 million people who are still uninsured. It is my firmly held belief that when a woman controls her own reproductive decisions, her life is better. Life is better for her family, life is better for her community, and the world is a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dowell. Also, if you want more information about Saturday's march, Planned Parenthood has a press release that they put out with all of their details as well that's available on their website. Our next speaker today is Stacy Davis-Gates, the Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union, Vice President of the Illinois Federation of Teachers, the Chair of United Working Families, and proud mother of 3 beautiful children. Thank you, Stacy.
Good afternoon, Chicago. Good afternoon. I'm using my teacher voice here. Listen, I'm going to make this real clear. My uterus is mine. My uterus is mine. The decisions about my uterus belong to me singularly. And I also want to make this real clear to anyone with ears, anyone that's paying attention. The enemy of labor, the enemy of working people, the enemy of black people, the enemy of our ability to live in this country with justice and equity are the same people who believe that they can legislate my uterus. There is no distinction between those who believe that black lives don't matter and your uterus belongs to them. There's no distinction between those who believe that I don't have the ability to vote or choose what's best for my body. There is no distinction between those who rail against the rights of educators to get a smaller class size, PPE, and safety. There's no distinction between these people. These are the same people who believe that they know what's best for us without us. So I want to make this clear. This fight is everyone's fight. This is a labor fight. Can I hear you? This is a labor fight. This is a teachers union's fight. This is a black woman's fight. This is a brown woman's fight. This is a every woman's fight. And let me tell you this too, this is a man's fight too, because we don't make them by ourselves. So let's be clear. Our fight for justice and equity begins from the top to the bottom. Our justice for equity begins with men, it begins with women, it begins with children. It begins with those who have melanated skin and those who don't. We must all find our commonality and our ability to raise our voices for the very thing that gives us our self-determination, our ability to choose for ourselves. The Chicago Teachers Union joins in women across this country and around this world in demanding hands off our uterus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Couldn't agree with you more. Our next speaker is Lucille Lindsey from the UIC chapter of the Young Democratic Socialists of America to speak about the impact this could have on our youth.
We are here today to protect ourselves and each other. If we do not fight for ourselves, no one will fight for us. We cannot be complicit in our own demise, our own dehumanization. These laws are not an end to an abortion, they're an end to safe abortion, a return to the back alley. These laws that are created to control us under the false disguise of protecting life will only result in the death of those who were unfortunate enough to fall pregnant in the United States and had the courage to take their autonomy back. Around 70,000 women die worldwide due to unsafe abortions. These laws are not protecting life, but instead destroying and endangering those who are already living. Abortion is not a privilege or a luxury, it is a right. If we do not have bodily autonomy, we have nothing, we have no dignity, we have no control. In the 48 years since Roe, not a day has gone by where we were respected enough as people to not be forced to defend our rights. Everyone here knows that this fight is not about what the Bible says or what someone believes is morally correct. It is about control. They are not pro-life. They're anti-woman, anti-trans men, anti-anyone with a uterus. If they were pro-life, there would not be 400,000 children in foster care. When there are laws like the Texas 6-week abortion ban, this may seem like a losing fight, but one battle is not the war. While it is a daunting task, fighting for oneself and everyone else is not an option, but instead an obligation. We have no choice but to fight, and fight we will.
Thank you so much. Please welcome our next speaker, Benita Ulisano, founder and president of the Clinic Vest Project, which sends free clinic escort vests to groups in 42 states, the UK and Canada, and to many teams in our home state of Illinois.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I just want to say many of my colleagues here have already touched on SB 8, the hardships, but I want to tell you my story, why I'm in this movement, why I'll fight to the death for the right to safe and legal abortion. I know someone who died of an illegal abortion. It was one of the saddest days of my life, and I will not forget that. She's the reason why I get up every Saturday, go to my clinic, and why I'm so honored that we as the Clinic Vest Project provide this little piece of polyester. And we are in the homes of our clinics across the country. And I have to say, I held my hand to my chest when I found out about SB 8 because I thought about my friend and the desperation she must have gone through that day she took her own life. So anyway, what I want to say here is that, we had a box of vests ready to go to our clinics in Texas. And it was sad to say when they said, we don't need them right now. Well, you will need them sooner or later. Their side is strong, but our side is stronger. They want to fight, they got to fight us. And they got to fight on their hands. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much, Bonita. I completely agree that they will need those vests soon. We will bring this fight back to them. Next up, we have Shannon Rotolo, the board president of the Illinois Single Payer Coalition, and she's also a clinical pharmacist at UChicago Medicine.
Hi, I'm Shannon Rotolo. I'm the president of the Illinois Single Payer Coalition. We're a single issue organization that believes that healthcare is a human right. And as such, we need a single payer system in this country so that if you or someone you know or someone you love needs health care, whether that's an abortion, whether that's contraceptives, whether that's pre-exposure prophylaxis, any form of healthcare, any form of sexual healthcare, any form of reproductive healthcare, that should be free to you at the point that you need it. That's right. You shouldn't have to call a friend and say, I can't afford this, I can't afford this. Can you lend me some money? You shouldn't have to save up for weeks. When you need healthcare, you should get the healthcare you need from a health professional that you trust. Not whoever your employer wants to contract with because it's cheaper, not wherever your insurance wants to route you for that prescription, but from the healthcare professional that you trust. Because these are big decisions and important decisions that, as the other speakers have said, affect the rest of your life. So it's really important that this is accessible, and that means that cost is not a barrier.
Last but certainly not least, we have Quinn Mcallis, a federal criminal defense attorney and board member of Illinois Choice Action Team, with fights for abortion access and provides safe passage to patients and their companions at independent clinics in Chicago.
Thank you. I came to this fight not through an abortion, but through my own miscarriage. I wanted a pregnancy and I lost it, and I ended up in the hospital because I didn't know what else to do. And while I was there, I felt like my consent was unnecessary. My body was repeatedly invaded by doctors and then multiple transvaginal ultrasounds, and not once did I feel like I was being treated as a whole person and asked whether I consented to whatever procedure was being thrust upon me. Before that night, I had taken my own bodily autonomy for granted. I assumed that the fight was over. We won. We won the right to have an abortion. Our bodies were recognized as our own, and that was that. But after that night, and then when I became pregnant with my son, I realized that the autonomy I thought was a given could easily be taken away, especially when pregnancy was involved. That's why I got involved in this movement. Because restrictions on abortion access, that's just the beginning of a regime of control over not just this one reproductive choice, but our lives. We've heard horror stories of prisons shackling pregnant people as they try to give birth. We've heard stories of people being prosecuted and imprisoned for their own miscarriages. And now they want to imprison us just for helping another exercise a fundamental right. We have seen time and time again that the laws enacted under the fantasy of protecting us are then used to punish us for exercising our rights over our own bodies. And every step of the way, we have said no. This fight that we have, it's got to be fought on many levels. In front of the clinics, in the offices of our elected officials, and in the courtroom. No battleground is more important than the other, and each one is necessary for us to protect our rights to control our bodies and our lives. Those of us in safe havens like Chicago, our voices and support are as necessary as those warriors fighting in Texas and other battleground states. We cannot rest thinking that we are safe here in Illinois, because the other side is not resting. They want Illinois to be just as hostile of a place for reproductive rights as Texas, Arkansas, South Carolina, any of those battleground states. One thing that I have learned from my almost 10 years of fighting this fight is that our side is loud and fearless. We won't back down, and we never shy away from a fight. If you want to join that fight and feel what it feels like to have that action happen right in front of your face, you can join us at the Illinois Choice Action Team in protecting access to clinics. If you want to help patients and their companions try to access those clinics, come talk to Bonita in the blue vest. She will get you signed up with us. We have 2 new clinics who are under attack from anti-choice protesters, and we need escorts to help those patients get into those clinics. It is some of the most rewarding work that I have ever done, and if you want to feel like you're doing something right there in front of your face, helping patients access clinics is one of the most tangible ways you can do that. Thank you.